call me.
Man, you look knackered.
I have had a very busy last few days. I am very tired.
Well, I am too. I've done about 300 miles today. I'm knackered as well.
That is quite a long distance.
But we get this done. We, in theory, get a break for 2 weeks. So
yeah, because I've got a wedding in a couple of weeks for a few days, so I'm not around.
I'm going to the desert on Tuesday.
That's true, you are. So you're definitely not around.
And it's going to the desert on Tuesday, and it's going to be, I mean Oman, it's going to be mid-40s all week.
No. Way too hot.
The only plus side I can think with that is it's way too hot, but there is aircon everywhere.
Yeah.
And
that's all right.
Yeah. And it's not like the humidity we get in London. Because the humidity we get in London when it's like mid-30s is horrible. Because it's it's like the smog and pollution.
Mm.
So I think it will just be hot, like a heater, just there. Just there on me. So, yeah.
I suppose if you're inside most of the time, though, you should be all right.
Yes, yeah, that should be. So, yeah, that's that. Oh, I love when we start this because I never tell you when I start recording.
No, you don't. I should get used to this by now. I'm sure you've already started recording.
I did press recording, but it's nice to get the preamble of why we're not going to be here for the next couple of weeks, which is why we're getting all these episodes recorded in a row.
Yeah.
So.
That's true, actually, which is good. Obviously, it was supposed to be our slasher versus slasher, but
we'll get onto the reasoning for that. So, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the Dreadcast. This is episode 14. Episode 14. So, that's technically 3.5 months. Technically, it should be maybe more. Although we've missed quite a few.
It's 3 months, 2 weeks. It would be. Wouldn't it?
Yeah. So, episode 14. The last couple we focused on Friday the 13th Part 1 and 2 because they're like salt and pepper day and night. They have to go together. You know, they're a pair that go together. And I thoroughly enjoyed discussing them. I think we could have gone a lot longer.
Oh yeah, we easily could have gone for longer, but I think at the same time it's like, I mean, when we first discussed doing this in the pub, and we were like, oh yeah, let's have a quick drink for like an hour or two.
Yeah.
And it's like 3 or 4 hours later, it was like, oh yeah, we could talk about this stuff for endless amount of time.
Yeah, I think so. But our unfortunate bridge between the Friday the 13th Part 1 and 2 episodes and what we're going to be doing in the next episode is the beauty, the masterpiece of the piece of art, the
final film in each franchise that probably killed off the franchises.
I think there's no probably about it. I mean, Friday the 13th was on its last legs anyway with Jason X, but this one solidified it. It is Freddie versus Jason, and as you mentioned, we were going to do it as slasher versus slasher, but we both started watching it and realised how bad this film is. You can't do the slasher versus slasher that we like to do. We just need to talk about how bad this film is.
Yeah, I mean, I have some notes that were a few things I was like, oh, okay, that was kind of nice, or like, that was a kind of a cool idea they went with.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it's just filled with, there are so many plot holes in this film that...
Yeah, horrific plot holes.
It's a canon film, but then when you look at it, you're like, they've ignored most of the canon.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, I'm personally more familiar with the lore, the canon story of Friday the 13th franchise than I am the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
I think the Nightmare on Elm Street one is a bit more complicated.
It is, and from what I remember, the last Nightmare on Elm Street is the one that's based along the lines of they're making a movie of what happened. Is that not New Nightmare?
No, yeah. So Wes Craven's
and John and Freddie.
Yeah, like it was canon.
Robert Englund is just there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so Freddy versus Jason. It's in the Nightmare on Elm Street series. It takes place directly after a Nightmare on Elm Street 7. A Nightmare on Elm Street 7, I think it is. Freddy's dead.
Yep.
Which they at the start of the film they mention it. He says, "Look, I've been in hell since they killed me in, I think they say 4 years ago, even though it's probably longer than, even, film wise it was longer than that." And it takes place just before Jason X, which kind of reveals why he's been resurrected.
Yep.
And Wes Craven's A New Nightmare isn't technically canon because I think even they were like, yeah, we've got this like kind of what's the word for it?
I was just getting the franchise up now, the list of films. I see what you're saying. Yeah, Wes Craven's New Nightmare just before, well, not just before, it's 94, and Freddy vs. Jason was 2003, and Jason X was early 2000. So
came out way before it, but at the same time, even they were like, it's like a standalone kind of, like a Scream type film. It's very self-referencing. So they were kind of
really is.
Yeah. Whereas this film, it's...
Can you, off the top of your head, do a synopsis of this film? Because I don't think I can. It's a Freddy film, that's for sure. It's really not. Yes. It's not a 50-50 Freddy and Jason film.
No, it's really not. Jason is barely in this film.
Jason's a pawn in this film.
Oh yeah, there's a great line where obviously Jason's like, Jason is Freddy's puppet, and he goes, well, maybe not puppet. He's going around killing, people. But there's a line later on where I believe it's the sheriff or one of the sheriff's officers. He meets with the group of teenagers that are like, oh, we've got to, it's after the massacre in the cornfield. And they're like, oh, yeah, Freddy's going around killing people. And this dude's like, oh, no, it's not, it's Jason. And they're like, who's that? And even he's like, oh, yeah, some dude from Crystal Lake who kills people. And they're like, oh, okay, right, cool. Yeah, so Freddy's the problem anyway. And if you were to look at this, if you were to take Jason out of this film, the film would still go ahead.
It's simply another Nightmare on Elm Street film, not on Elm Street, basically, featuring Freddy.
Not needed in this film at all. Effectively, what you could do is replace Jason with some, I don't know, easily influential, other character who maybe is slightly psychotic, and have Freddy influencing him, and he would just take the role of Jason. You would have to probably change the end type between the two of them, but you can pretty much just take Jason out of it and just have it as a Nightmare on Elm Street 8.
Yeah, he felt like it. He felt very shoehorned in to what was, you were saying, essentially a Freddy Krueger film.
It's a nightmare film.
Yeah. I mean, the first note I have, the very first note I have, and I took these down, briefly noted these down while I was watching the film. The first note I have, the acting is horrific.
It's not good.
It's really bad. Really bad. And that's going alongside with a pretty piss poor script as well. Like we're discussing how the film doesn't really make sense at times, and you kind of established that earlier on where the film doesn't really make sense.
It's most of the time, most of my notes are full of, there's so many fourth wall breaks as well. I really hated them. It's like Freddy keeps looking at the screen, talking to you, and you're like, stop it, just please stop. I know it was like the kind of thing, it's like, mid 2000s, it's like fourth wall breaks, let's put them in, but then at the same time you're like, stop talking to me, just get on with the film, please. And most of my notes are just about how many contradictions there are in the script. It's the main one I had was, and actually it's a huge plot hole straight away. So it all takes place in the town of Springfield. Not Springfield. Springfield.
Springdale?
Springdale, that's the one. Not Springfield, that's The Simpsons. And it's established very early on that in Nightmare on Elm Street 7, Freddy's dead. John Doe in that film is the last teenager in the whole of Springdale. There are no kids left. There's no teenagers left. Freddy has killed them all. They're all gone. Oh, no.
Springwood.
Oh, Springwood.
Just found out. Springwood.
What is Springwood? I don't know why I thought it was Springdale. And then it's established that after Freddie was finally killed, the adults basically scrubbed him from their history. They got rid of all the evidence, and after that night, and so there was no record of him left. And yet, straight away, one of the kind of the plot holes is that Laurie, who is kind of the main character, Freddie kills her mother whilst pretending to be her father, and yet this all takes place apparently 4 years ago when Freddie was killed, even though there were no children left in Springwood.
Yes.
So at the same time, you're like, okay, that's odd. But the other problem with it is, and this is, I mean, I've got a lot of notes on canon contradiction, is she lives in the Elm Street house. And that Elm Street house, if you go back to Freddie's dead, when this film apparently, Laurie's mother apparently dies, that house was completely abandoned at that point in time. There was no one living there.
Yep.
Because people knew the history of the house and went, don't live there. So immediately you're also like, cool, so you were living in a house that no one lived in?
Yeah, so basically every quote-unquote evil house from a slasher film, the Myers house, for example, there was an example I think we've gone back to many times, which really fucked us off with Halloween Kills. Yeah. The couple that are living in that house. Why? Why is that house still even up? Why is it not rubble?
You would bulldoze the house down easily.
Yep, you would.
Yeah.
So can we, before we get into, because this is going to be a Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 rant, I think. Let's both try and work out what happens in this film quickly. So we're at the beginning. Freddie is alive. He's trapped in hell.
No, he's trapped in hell. He's not got. I think he's very weak. So the Dream Demons have left him.
Yeah.
So he's not got his powers.
Yeah.
And obviously he finds at the end of one of the last Friday the 13th, whichever part that was, part 9 or whatever it was. Obviously he grabbed Jason's mask and brings down to hell. Which at the start of this film he says, "Oh, I found someone that could go out and terrorize them, and so I can gain more power." Because obviously everyone in Springwood has forgotten about him.
Yes.
So, lo and behold, he resurrects Jason and goes, pretending to be Pamela Voorhees, which is not the original actress, because I think she read the script and went, "This is rubbish."
Oh no, it's definitely not. Yeah, no, it's not. No.
No, it's definitely not her.
I hated the way they portrayed her, Pamela Voorhees.
Terrible. I basically put fake Pamela Voorhees because it was terrible.
Yeah.
And so he sets off to go and basically Mama says, go kill all the kids in Springwood, which Jason thinks, all right, cool, I'll go do that. And then, off goes his rampage, which, well, to be fair, it's not a rampage because he turns up, he kills one kid and then vanishes for like the next 40 minutes.
There's no reason for him to go to kill him. He's just apparently weak-minded, so go kill him. Okay, I'm off.
Yep.
I'm going to go do some slashing. There's no reason for it.
No, there's exactly. And Jason is known for, if he's on a killing spree, he doesn't stop. He keeps on going. He will go and go and go and go and go. Whereas in this one, he kills one person in the house and then vanishes.
And doesn't this go back to what you told me that Camp Crystal Lake, where Jason is supposedly at, is quite far away from Springwood? It's
way too far away. It's well established that I don't have the exact details. Springwood somewhere, I don't know where Springwood is on the map, but basically they worked out in the films that the two states that each location is in, Springwood and Crystal Lake, they are 7 hours away from each other. And Jason doesn't drive, or anymore, so he would have had to have walked. That's
here to Edinburgh.
7 hours. Sorry.
That's here 7 to Edinburgh.
Hours by car.
Yeah.
To get him to walk there, it would take him days to get, maybe weeks to get there.
That's here to Edinburgh.
Yeah, it's here to Edinburgh. So
How
this
would
whole
you do
film
that?
Immediately, you'd be. Well, I mean, if you're an undead monster like Jason, you'd probably just keep going. But it would take you weeks to get there. By which point, all the kids are like, "Well, nothing's happened." So, yeah, again, that's kind of like a big kind of plot. But to you, that's another kind of plot hole. Whereas later on, near the end of the film, where they're trying to get Freddie into the real world, and they're like, "Oh, let's take Jason back to Crystal Lake." This all happens within the same night, and they worked out that if he was to drive from Springwood to Crystal Lake, he'd have to do a 7-hour trip whilst trying to keep Jason's, under tranquilizer.
Well, that's much later on in the film.
It's much later on, but it's like it's physically impossible for them to do it unless he was driving 100 miles an hour through the mountains to get there, which probably didn't.
So I mean, the base of the film, it's a Freddy film, like we said. Freddy wants his power back. Jason is the pawn that he's using to try and get his power back. Yeah. Jason really, like I said, just feels so shoehorned in. There's no reason for him to be here. It's Freddy trying to get back to his glory days. We are given an ensemble cast of absolute morons, none of which are likable one bit. There's normally somewhat of a protagonist that is friends with the morons that you're kind of meant to root for. No, none of them are likable one bit. And plus throughout the film, they start to figure this out, but it's not really clear how they start to figure this out. That Freddy's trying to come back. An epiphany. Yeah,
it's like, oh, let's do this. They're also the stereotypical idiots in horror films.
They are very stupid.
It's very prevalent when it's Will and is it Matt? I don't know his name. The dude's mate, who apparently had the contact with Freddy in his last film, even though.
Are we talking about the two guys in the mental asylum?
Yeah, and they obviously. That aside, sticking to, they know who Freddy is and they know how to combat him. They know how to combat him, and they know they wonder why everyone has scrubbed the existence of Freddy. And they're like, oh, it's because they don't want us remembering him. If no one remembers him, he is powerless. And they state that. And the first thing that Will does is find Laurie and go, "You're talking about Freddy Krueger." And then everyone's like, "Who is Freddy Krueger?"
Yeah,
so you're like, you've literally just told everyone who Freddy Krueger is. And then there's a scene in a cornfield where all these teenagers are like, "Yeah, I asked my parents about Freddy Krueger." They were like, "Oh yeah, he's this big old slasher dude." And it's like the parents of this town spent so long scrubbing his name to be like, "We will never mention his name again," for all of a sudden to be like, "Yeah, so he's this evil dude who's going to come back and kill you in your dreams." It's like, wow, these parents suck as well. They're all terrible.
Yeah. So there's a couple of bits there. So we kind of go back to the two guys we mentioned in the mental asylum. Yeah. So they're there because of what Freddy has done to them in the past. And the other girl you mentioned, Laurie, she is part of the group that we meet early on. Yeah. And they're having somewhat of a little gathering at the house. There's only about 4 of them. Kelly Rowland is one of them from Destiny's Child. She's a horrible actress. Horrible actress.
I think
no
she got
emotion.
Pulled up for this and she came around. She said, "I had fun doing it, so I don't."
Oh, good for you.
She's like, "Oh, that's fair enough."
Horrible actress. As long as she got paid, fine, whatever. So they're at this party, and then the first kill that Jason does? Is one of these douchey boys that comes round to this small gathering. He is one of the most unlikable characters. I mean, we talk about unlikable characters in these sort of films from this sort of generation. They're douchey morons. They're meant to be, but this guy, I had so much hatred for him. It wasn't even the fact I wanted him to die. I just wanted him off my screen.
Yeah,
the writing for him was so bad. He's walking like, "Hey babe, when you gonna blow me, huh? When you gonna do me, huh? Take my jacket. Where's my beer?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, just go in. It's fine. Yeah. He's so dreamy. He's so dreamy." It's just not it's not believable that would happen. But he gets
stereotypical high school douchebag. Yeah,
but he gets it, and at this point, really I actually thought the gore. It was quite gory. His death.
Oh yeah, it's very gory.
Jason just repeatedly stabbing this guy with a machete in the bed in this house where the gathering was. But the gore I found so over the top, but in a bad way. There's a good way and there's a bad way. It was unnecessary, the amount of blood. You know, in certain films where if someone gets slashed with a knife, which happens in this, suddenly off camera a bucket of fake blood will be chucked across a window. That's what happens in this, and it's so silly.
Overdone.
It's overdone and it's pointless. And that's what happened with this guy's death, I remember.
Yeah, because in the first Nightmare film, where they did it, where Johnny Depp's character is, is eaten alive in his
It
bed, and they had
worked.
the fountain of blood. Though it worked because you were watching it, going, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah.
It was so artistically done. Whereas now you're just like, because it's also the bit with the nose was so overdone. When it comes
the
like
bad CGI.
yeah, he pulls off her nose and it flies towards the screen,
Yeah.
and you're just watching it, going, "Oh god, please stop."
The thing
No.
with Johnny Depp, which I will get to because after this we'll be in the future reviewing A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, because this was our transition from Friday the 13th to Nightmare on Elm Street. The thing with that Johnny Depp scene, which again I'll reiterate then, the amount of blood works because if you think about it in the way of Freddie took him to maybe hell or another world, and there's just an absurd amount of blood and you don't know what he did to him. It works.
Yeah.
This is Jason just going in a bed.
Yeah.
And there's more blood coming out of this guy than is gone in his body. It's absurd.
Unfortunately, I would say that's probably one of Jason. I mean, that's probably Jason's best kill in this, because he doesn't have, apart from a few times where
I agree. Probably
in a cornfield. That's it. He's barely in this film. It's got to be said. He appears and then disappears. I think he appears right at the start when he's resurrected, and he kills the douchebag. He then vanishes. Well, he does his weird Michael Myers stalking, like, pose in the rain.
Yes.
Some dark reason. And then he vanishes. Then he appears probably about halfway through the film in the cornfield and
which
vanishes.
We'll get to, because there's a few bits I want to talk about that as well.
Yeah. And then he reappears right at the end for his fight. And so he's only really in it 3 times. The most amount of screen time he gets is at the end of the film when he's having a fight with Freddie. That's it.
Speaking of Jason, I wasn't a fan of his design, his look in this. He looked too thin. He looked really not slim, but I imagine Jason as Kane Hodder. Kane Hodder is a big dude who played Jason in the latter films. And this
very good Jason.
Kane Hodder doesn't play him in this, clearly. And Jason just didn't look right. He just didn't look right in this film.
It's interesting you mention that, because I read up about this, and the director made that deliberate choice. So Kane Hodder was actually sent the script, and he was like, "This is great. I'm going to play Jason again. Get to play alongside Robert Englund," which, let's face it, Robert Englund was probably one of the, the actor that really kicked off most of the 80s slashers with the way he did Freddie. And so they sent Kane Hodder the final script. And so in the back of his mind, he was probably like, "This is great. I'm going to be Jason. Fantastic." And then the guy went, "Yeah, I don't want you because you're too short for my Jason. So I'm going to get Ken Kersinger, who's taller than you." And he goes, "I'm going to have it deliberately. Jason is very, very slow in this film." And
very slow. Very slow.
Plods along. I mean, yes, he's compared to Robert Englund, who's only 5'9" or something.
Yeah.
I mean, Ken Kersinger is like 6'7", so there's a good height difference, but it's just not a good. Jason is fast when he needs to be. That's the thing. He's a big machine.
Unless they're following the law of after part 6 onwards, where he isn't human. He was resurrected before part 6, but 1 to 4. No, sorry, 2 to 4. He is human, which we discussed in the last one, where you can see him actually tussling and moving quite quickly. 6 onwards, he has the Michael Myers slow approach, but will always catch up with you. That's very tropey. But this was just ultra slow. This was
Michael Myers level of walking, and it didn't work. I'm a Jason Voorhees fan. He's my favorite slasher, but this version of Jason, I was like, this just no, it just doesn't work. But that was director's right to say, right, actually, no, I don't want him. I want someone else.
Yeah, it was his choice. So
I can't remember why, but I've got a note here which says feng shui, and I think it's because inside that blooming house, that person went, "Oh, your feng shui of your hat." Oh, it's that dude who was trying to get with Laurie.
Yep.
And he was like, "Yo, have you seen your feng shui at the house? Should we go up to the bedroom for some feng shui?" It's like, dude, she's not into you. Just drop.
Clearly not into you.
I didn't like Kelly Rowland's character. She annoyed the crap out of me.
Yeah, again, not likable.
No, she kept telling Laurie to find a nice guy. She said, you got to find a nice guy. And then obviously she keeps mentioning this, I don't know, whoever this feng shui dude is. And Laurie's clearly like, I'm sorry, but he's a bit of an idiot. I don't want to date him. And then it's when they meet the kind of like the geeky kid who tries to he goes up to Laurie in the cornfield and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear about whoever it is," and he's generally a really nice guy. It's like, oh, I like this kid. He's quite nice. And Kelly Rowland comes over and goes, "Look, dude, just piss off. She's not into you. Get lost." And I'm like, you literally just told her to find a nice guy. Here's a nice guy, and you're like, no, get lost. I did like the shot where we get to see Jason's body reanimating. So it's this corpsey body, and then you get to see the heart slowly pump back to life. And I was like, okay, I did like the music in this. It is so heavily 2000s new metal, where you got like,
it is. It's
Slipknot.
One of my favorite bands is the theme tune for this band called Il Nino. They do the theme tune for this. How Can I Live? Just to, again, we're going to try not to do the whole synopsis, but just to bullet point through the film. So there's the gathering at the beginning where we meet our gang of arseholes. And then Jason does his business. But we introduce Laurie, as you've been mentioning, is our main girl. She's our final girl in a way from the beginning. She's not great. She's not great.
No, she's not that good.
Her partner, her ex-boyfriend, is one of the guys you mentioned, one of the two that are in a mental asylum. Will. And one of the other guy, no, not Will, can't remember his name. His brother was killed by Freddie, but is obviously in the mental asylum because no one believes him.
Yeah.
So that's why. And then they eventually escape. I'm going to gloss over how they escape because it's pointless. They escape a mental asylum because apparently it's a very shit mental asylum. It's where Sarah Connor apparently was. They escape and they get back to the town and they meet up with Laurie. One thing I noticed about this town, if it's nighttime, boy, it's gonna rain.
Oh yeah,
it's constantly raining. It's constantly raining.
That was one of my, apart from the corn scene, that's the only time it's not raining. And one of my first notes is that pie at the start. They got all the windows open, and you're like, there is a giant thunderstorm going on outside. It's pouring out with rain. I'm like, close your windows. You do not need all your windows open. Your house is going to get flooded. It's very, very, very daft.
Yeah.
God, so I'm just trying to look at my note. I'm just trying to find positives before I keep talking about negatives.
Well, I can tick off my note that says nighttime equals rain time.
One of the things I did note, and this is why, like we said at the start, it's very heavily a nightmare film.
Yeah.
Is the characters in this film, they fall asleep way too easy. Any opportunity, they're asleep. Laurie, when she gets to the police station, obviously after the douchebag is killed, they call the cops. They're like,
yes.
She gets to the police station. She literally puts her head on the table. And she's asleep like that. Yeah. And then there's a bit later where they're in the school, and I think Laurie collapses because she sees Will. She has a panic attack. She collapses. She's taken to the nurses, and the two girlfriends are sitting there, and apparently Kelly Rowland's character has fallen asleep easily. And it's like it's the morning time in your wherever you are. It's like, how tired are these characters all the time? That they fall asleep it's a shoot. It's like, oh, we now need her to be scared of Freddie, and she falls asleep. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Bit of a and shoehorning it in there, but all right.
They use the same sort of direction of the character doesn't actually visibly fall asleep. So she's sitting on a bench in the police station, and some weird shit starts happening. And then you as the viewer realize, oh, she's asleep, it's not real. And then suddenly, I'm awake. They use that constantly. You never visibly see a character.
No, they're just asleep.
And then going into the dream world. The scene is cut to them apparently asleep, and that happens later on in a scene which we'll get to. Oh, go on.
I did like the moving wall pictures of who is it? So it's the bit where Laurie falls asleep in the police station. And what I really liked was the moving when she walks past the children on the walls, all the missing kids.
Yes.
And they all just follow her. And I sat there going, that reminds me so much of Goosebumps, where you had that creepy change. I was like, oh, okay, that's quite nice. I really like that sort of, that little creepy element. The girl with no eyes, though, that freaked me out. That was like, okay, bit weird. But there you go. But I did notice something that I thought was interesting. And to me, I don't know if it's ever mentioned in the previous Nightmare films, but it's brought up that Freddy Krueger is a child killer. He's a child killer. And so when I heard that, I was like, okay. And it's at the start of the film. You see him when he's a human, and it's very heavily, children, probably just before teenage years. And I sat there going, if he's only killing children, I'm like, then adults and teenagers would be like, well, okay, he's not after us, so what's the point?
Yeah, and this group they're in high school, but they're probably at the end of high school, so we're talking, American films and TV shows around. It's like they always cast people that are in their mid-20s to be actors. Yeah. It's always horrifically bad. So, but they're late teens in school.
Yeah, late teens. Staying on that though, what I remember was interesting is when they released the new It films, and they cast actual teenagers to play the teenagers. I remember when loads of people were like, they're way too young. They're definitely children. It's like, no, they're teenagers. That's just what a teenager looks like. But we're too used to seeing 30-year-olds playing a teenager.
We're too desensitized to it now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, moving back to this, whatever this film is, which is pretty bad.
I'm fairly certain after because we brushed across quite a bit of this, and because you need to, really. There's a lot of meh. One thing I found quite funny, and it was more of an in-joke for me, because I'm a fan, I'm ashamed to say I'm a fan of the first few Scary Movie films. Because they were fun. When Jason has done his first kill at Laurie's house. Oh wait, it's not Laurie's house, it's her friend's house. The douchey guy. No. Is it Laurie's house? Oh, okay. Oh, it doesn't matter. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Who cares about this film? He wants to kill his death, and then they run outside with their bad screaming, acting, and a police car appears. Who is the policeman? It's Greg. Greg or Craig, or whatever his name is. Craig. From Scary Movie 1. And I couldn't take him seriously. I just couldn't take him seriously because of Scary Movie 1.
And all I could picture was him with that infamous scene where he gets the picture in his locker.
With his tiny dick.
And that's all I could see was him. And I'm like, oh no, you kind of tanked your career.
It's a disability, man.
Just
yeah. So he's the cop that he's new to the scene. He's not familiar with Freddy's history. He's not familiar with the town's history. I think he was new to the whole picture. So throughout the film, he becomes more and more on the kids' side. He's starting to believe them, right? Whereas the older cops, they're like, these kids, they don't know what they're talking about. We got to keep them quiet. We don't talk about this.
To the insane asylum, shush him up.
Yeah.
He's but I can't remember his name in this film, but Craig, as we'll call him, is the only Jason Voorhees the only person who knows who Jason Voorhees is, because no one else everyone in this film is like, it's definitely Freddie. And yet, this dude literally walks in and goes, "Oh yes, Jason Voorhees."
His name's Stubbs.
And everyone else
that's what I got.
Seems to be like, "Well, who's that?" And I'm like, if these two are in the same universe, it's like chances are news would have filtered around about who Jason Voorhees is.
Yeah. And there's a big plot hole I found with him later on. Something he says that was just stupid.
The first thing, it's popped into my head now. This one scene. It's going back to the thought that, I really liked the idea. I really like the great concept for a nightmare film where if they had done it correctly, it's, they've managed to scrub Freddy from existence. Not from existence, but from that town's existence.
Yeah.
And I really like that concept. I thought that could be a good concept. But again, it's when Will and Mark, I'm going to say it. I did find it daft that they went to a high school when they're wanted by the police for being escaped. They're on the run, and they go to a high school for some daft reason where everyone knows their face.
Why does he go to her house instead?
What I found funny was the fact they got spotted by the headmaster, and he goes, "Oh, it's you two," and they run off, but they don't leave the school. They stay in the school. They go to the library, and they're like, "Dude, look, they've scrubbed Freddy." It's like, I wonder why. It's like you just had a conversation where you explain why they scrubbed Freddy's name and why they separated you from everyone.
No, they got spotted by the police in the school. It was 2 cops.
Oh, and yeah, that was right.
Will, Mark, I can't remember the last names. And
yeah,
they don't chase them.
Time to go.
They don't chase them. They're shit cops.
Yeah, they're rubbish. What I did find funny was the fact that when they go back to the psychiatric hospital, they use the same key card to get back in. And I was like, that key card, the second it was stolen, would have been cancelled.
Oh my
god! And the door they were seen going out of it's like, right, lock that door because clearly you can escape through it. Oh.
Yeah. But before they go back to the mental asylum, now we're at the cornfield. Now, there's a lot going on at the cornfield. We cut to a cornfield. Yeah. There is a rave going on, and there is probably 100 people, 150 people. Big group of people. Big rave, big douchey rave, big bros. Yeah, bro. Do shots, bro. Beer, bro. And this is where Jason comes back.
This is where Jason reappears. And, of course, this is when you're like, okay, Jason. Well, no, first we get the very heavily drinking girlfriend who apparently gets so drunk she passes out, and then Freddie torments her.
Yes, he passes out.
Jason kills her.
Yeah,
he kills her with the pervy dude. So I wasn't too mussed with him, and then launches him halfway across the cornfield, which I did think was very. Jason, I mean, Jason is very strong, but even then, I'm like, you're not that strong.
No.
And this is great because this is where Freddie starts to find. At this point in time, Freddie's obviously let Jason loose to try and gain more power, so they remember him, which does seem to work. He does start to get stronger, but then he soon realizes that Jason doesn't terrify people; he just kills them. And he starts to realize this when he's trying to terrify the girl in the dream world, and Jason just kills her. And he's like, "Well, hang on, no." And so that's when he kind of realizes that his plan's got a bit of a problem. That Jason doesn't care.
That's a bit of a problem. Let's just think. Let's think about this fucking plot. Like, he needs power to come back.
Yeah.
So he uses a serial killer to kill the kids that he needs to get the power from. All he needs to do to kill these kids is these kids to fall asleep, right?
Yeah.
Jason's MO isn't to make people fall asleep.
No, it's really not.
It doesn't make sense, this film.
And that's where this weird, it's plot armor, because every kid that Freddie torments just falls asleep.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh look, she's fallen asleep. It's like, oh look, Freddie needs to torment her. She falls asleep. And you could tell that when they were writing this, they were like, we need her to be asleep. How do we do it? Don't know, she's just asleep.
No idea.
And in this one, they put it that she drank so much she passed out.
Yeah.
Which, is in a cornfield, which is dangerous in itself. But,
I remember when this film first came out, and I was hyped for it, I was actually hoping the premise would be along the lines of Freddie is fucking with Jason in his dreams. Jason has done his last film or whatever in Camp Crystal Lake. They're all dead. Camp Crystal Lake is abandoned. No one goes there. Jason is still living in the woods in his shack with his mum's head, being weird and mutant and creepy. But he's still got to sleep some point. So when he does sleep, Freddy is in this demon world and has suddenly found Jason's mind. So I thought it was a case of Freddy would be fucking with Jason. But at the same time, we get a Friday the 13th film when it could be as generic as, another group of kids come to the camp. They break into the camp. They're not meant to be there. Jason's still trying to kill, but he starts messing up at times because Freddy's fucking with him. Freddy's messing him up. Cool. It's a bit more entwined than this plot that makes no sense.
The other thing you could have done is, obviously, at the end, because this is set after the end of both of their last respective films, Freddy is dead, and he's in hell, and Jason is dead and probably would be in hell. And you could have had a great concept where the two of them are in hell and they're like, I'm going to rule this place. And it's like, no, you're not. I will. And you just have these going at each other to be like, I don't know, the Lord of Hell or whatever.
I think the hardest part of that for a creative, in general, is someone is trying to come up with a vision of hell. That is not an easy thing to do. Like I've seen some incredible art books. Barlow, an artist, did a book of his vision of what hell would look like, and the art is incredible. The other one that comes close to me is the creative input behind the new Doom games, especially Doom Eternal. I love the visionary concept of hell. It's just different. I love that, but hell is in general is a hard thing to.
I liked
to be different.
Because I've seen the Lucifer TV series, and I like their version of it, which is it's very barren.
Yeah,
but Lucifer explains. He goes, well, if you come down to hell, your hell is different from his hell because it's whatever guilt you have. Yeah. That's just what you're stuck in, around and around and around, and I really like that concept, and it's like, well, we don't actually keep you here. It's like if you can let go of your guilt or whatever it is, the door's unlocked. You can just walk through it. But because people, a lot of times most of the time it's very hard to let certain things go. I was like, that's a great concept for hell. It's like, effectively, it's purgatory as well. Until you can get out of that cycle, you're just stuck. I must admit, I will say, though, when Freddie eventually does get into Jason's dreams, I loved how his mind was, where it's just that foggy swamp.
Yes.
And I remember watching going, at his like swamp mind dream state, I was like, that is so cool.
Yeah, there was really actually a nice shot, a side panel shot of Jason slowly walking through the swamp, dragging a body behind him. I actually really like that. That was a really good shot. Like that shot. Just a quick side note. If you want to look it up, it's called Barlow's Inferno. Barlowe and then Inferno. And if you Google image search it, the book is really hard to find. The book is a couple of £100 and it's really hard to find. But you'll be able to see images on Google and they're insane. They are mental. Do check that out if you're interested in concept visions of hell.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you want to do some research or something.
The cornfield. So there's a rave going on. Jason appears, kills some people. Now, there are two dude bros. I'm going to keep calling him Miles Teller because he looks like Miles Teller. There are two dude bros that...
I think his name's Lindemann. I've got a note saying Lindemann Byrne, and I think that's because he has a go at Kelly and basically tells her she's stuck up.
She is, yeah. There are two dude bros that are all about the drinking and smoking weed, and they light up a joint, and I feel like this has been done to death as well. Light up a joint, think you're seeing visions. Oh, dude, what's this hot guy in a hockey mask? So that gets around the fact that they aren't scared. But he's real. He's not a figure of their imagination. He's real. And it's some really silly deaths. One of the deaths, he spins the guy's neck round. The other death... how does he kill the bigger guy? The real dude, bro. It's the fire machete.
Yeah, the fire machete, because he's been set on fire somehow. I can't remember how he gets caught on fire. But he's on fire. He gets doused in beer, doesn't he? And he gets... I don't know, he's on fire.
Does he use his joint on him? Jason is on fire. At this point...
he's on fire somehow.
Jason is on fire, and it's probably the coolest part of the film, in my opinion. A fire machete.
Yeah,
Jason is on fire, slowly walking through the cornfield with his machete on fire. And he's slowly walking through the cornfield towards the rave. So you're in the middle of a cornfield rave, and suddenly this fucking guy that's on fire with a hockey mask is walking towards you slowly with his machete in the air on fire. All I will say, that is uber cool, but there are hundreds of people here. You can stop him. You can stop him, and they're all panicking. Oh god! Oh my god! Just get in the car and run him over.
That was literally one of my notes.
Pick up a keg, throw it at him.
I know we're jumping around in my notes, but there you go. And it was... Well, the first note was the fact that he only kills one person in the house at the beginning, and then when he turns up now, it's like, cool, free for all, butcher everyone.
Oh my god, it's flash.
It's like, okay, cool. I noticed that you're in a cornfield, and this is a cornfield middle of nowhere, and Jason walks in one way.
Yeah.
For some reason, all of these kids run in directions right in front of Jason.
They do, which makes it easier for him to kill them.
You like just turn around and run away from the giant man on fire, but they're running in front of him, and you're like, you're making this so easy for him. He literally just has to stand there, stick his hand out, and like, there you go. I've made some, hot kebab people out of these things. And I just remember watching it going, again, it's just plot armor. It's like, we need Jason to kill people. They're having a panic. Have him run in front of Jason. He can just kill a load.
I think the way he extinguishes himself is he goes to slash someone, but this person he goes to slash is standing in front of a keg of something. I don't think it's beer, because the beer would have ignited it more.
Yeah, some foamy stuff.
Yeah, it's foam water, but it extinguishes him. So that's their cop-out way of getting out of it. But Kelly Rowland and Laurie find their other best friend dead.
Oh, yeah.
And when they do escape the cornfield, when they've driven back, they've got back to their house, the zero emotion of their best friend that's just been dead. Kelly Rowland, she drops Kelly Rowland off and she said, "You call me later? Yeah? Okay. Love you. Okay, bye."
They
you've
don't
just
care.
seen a monster and your best friend is dead. No? Give me something. Give me something. Come on, just give me something.
This is the other thing. I give it to them. They wouldn't know who Freddy Krueger is.
No.
But the thing is, they're aware. I think, to be fair, at this point in time, Will is... No, they do know. Freddy, even Will says, look, Freddy Krueger kills you in your dreams.
Yeah.
So then see this person, they should be like, who on earth is this? But even then they're like, oh, it must be Freddy Krueger. And it's only again until a bit later, well, not too much later on from this, because I must admit, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I've got barely any notes left, because already we're getting near to the end of the film. And it's only again until the chef turns up later and goes, oh, it's Jason Voorhees. They're like, oh, cool. I wonder who that is. It's like, it's the fiery monster that just butchered everyone in the cornfield.
He says that.
You clearly don't care.
But he's trying to convince the sheriff it's a copycat Jason Voorhees killer? Why would he assume that?
I don't know.
Why would he assume that?
I can't remember who it is. Basically, I know it's Lindemann. I think basically turns around and says, "No, that's Jason."
Yeah.
And it's like, you just literally a minute ago said you had no idea who this bloke is, but now you're like, yeah, that's definitely Jason. Oh yeah.
But by saying that's Jason, gives the impression that he's some famous serial killer, that he's world renowned.
It would be if this was if Freddie is that well known.
Yeah.
You wouldn't heard of Jason in this. And
but would the authority, if he's that well renowned, would the authorities not want to do something to track him down and kill him and get rid of him?
Yeah.
They don't just leave serial killers out there.
Which is Jason X. He's lured back to Crystal Lake because the FBI are hunting him.
Yeah.
Which obviously, takes place after this film apparently. So, he's on the FBI's radar. Or should be. I've got my next. Again, it's going back to this daft thing, which is my note is the fact that there's a giant cover-up going on, and yet this entire group of teenagers, including Will and Mark, are like, we can't trust anyone because they don't want to talk about Freddy. We can't trust them. It's like, again, you're hammering home the fact. It's like, oh, teenagers know what we're doing. We're good teenagers, even though fairly certain the sheriff is like, you're a bunch of stupid kids. Stop talking. Yeah. We know what's gone on.
Yep.
But these teenagers are like, no, you adults, you suck. Huh.
Well, speaking of Mark, I believe it's at this point where Mark meets his demise. Laurie and Will are back together. I can't remember how they meet back together. This may be before or after. Excuse me. Before or after. Yeah, is this before or after Laurie's dad turns up on the scene and she runs away? That's it. Oh, by the way, it's raining again at this point.
Oh yeah, it is.
I noted down raining again, but they go to Mark. Mark is being attacked by Freddie, and they do nothing. They do nothing. They see him. They try to get into his house. The door is locked, and then they view Mark through a window which has like bars on the outside, but they don't. So they can't. They obviously can't get through the window with the bars while they're watching him die. But the first door they tried was like a glass door. Why not just smash it down? Why not just smash it down? Why they're just standing there going, "No, Mark, no."
The problem I also had with this scene is Freddy is still not powerful enough he's obviously power enough that he can start hurting people.
Yeah.
There's a face view shot of Mark when he's getting Freddie is burning a message into his back because Mark's like, I'm not taking any messages. Yes. So he goes, I'll do it myself, and he burns this message saying Freddie's back into his back, which causes Mark to run around his room because his back's on fire. And as he's running around in this, you're looking at him going, he's wide awake when this is happening. And I was like, you're wide awake, so Freddie can't actually touch you anymore. So I'm like, you would be able to be like, oh, I'm wide awake. Oh, cool, I'll go open the door. And I must admit, I sat there going, that's what really bothered me about this, because again, it's like, the people who made this film, if you're going to make a sequel to a film and you say it is a canon film, just do your research.
It's not hard.
And make sure it's canon.
Yeah, because it's not like, hard.
Freddy can only hurt you when you are dreaming unless he's pulled into the real world. Even then, it's like, just go back and watch a few of the films that establish the law and be like, okay, that's the law. Follow that, rather than going, Mark's running around, wide awake.
Yeah.
His back's on fire. It's like, no, it wouldn't be. You've bucketed up the law there. But
they also do the thing I mentioned earlier about how you do not see him fall asleep. The scene transitions to him seemingly awake, but he's actually asleep.
Yeah, this is a guy who's on top of his Freddy lore.
Yes,
I mean, knows his stuff.
He's the crazy guy that knows his stuff, but he's only crazy to them. He's not crazy to us.
I love that little speech of his. He goes, how do you see it? He goes, coffee, lots of coffee, make friends with coffee. It's like, you reckon some coffee brand will pay you a load of dollars if you crank in our coffee name? And they're like, coffee, just take the coffee. It's like, oh yeah, we get it, coffee, mate. All right, calm down. Clearly you've had too many.
It's like one of those 5-hour energy adverts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it pretty much is. Now, this is the point where they're having this little meeting and the sheriff turns up, and again, Laurie falls asleep. Although, to be fair, Laurie might be a bit tired at this point in time because of everything that's going on. She obviously just run away from her father, who doesn't confirm or deny.
The group are back together in like a basement of a house. But we also have the stoner guy. We also have the stoner guy.
Oh yeah, I don't know why he's there. Oh, he's only there because
as hell.
Drug.
He was so obnoxious.
Yeah. He was really bad.
Oh yes, the drug. The drug. We need to talk about the drug.
Yes, the drug Hypnosil, which is this untested drug. Oh, which Laurie's father apparently prescribed to Will and Mark. So actually, you're like, well, he's not necessarily. He's not a bad guy then, because he's like, okay, these kids have met Freddy. If they dream, they might meet Freddy. So here, take this drug. You won't dream. You'll be safe. And it's like, okay, so he's not a bad guy then. He's actually trying to help these kids.
Yeah.
But obviously, Will thought he killed his mum, and then there's a bit in the house where he's like, I was just protecting you. It's like, but I didn't do it, but I'm protecting you. And it's like, did you kill her or did you not? What was going on here? I don't... Anyway, but basically they're like, oh yeah, Hypnosil. That's psychiatric hospital that we broke out of. Let's go back there. And also at this point in time, by the way, again, there's barely any emotion for the fact that Mark's just been horribly burnt to death. They're just like, yeah, cool, let's go do that.
It's basically a tranquilizer drug, like a Valium, shall you say, like a really strong Valium. Horse tranquilizer.
Unauthorized horse tranquilizer sleeping pill.
Yes.
So they go up to this psychiatric hospital and literally just walk through the door because,
with the same key card.
With the same key card that's still active somehow.
Yeah.
They just walk around the psychiatric hospital.
There's no one there.
Massive group of teenagers.
There's no one
there.
Although
they have got a police officer with them, so maybe. Which then turns from this psychiatric hospital to this weird science experiment coma patient thing, where these people are too hooked on this drug, and it's at this point in time that Freddy possesses one of them, because again he falls asleep really easily.
Yeah, so it's the stoner guy we briefly mentioned earlier. He's with the group. He gets high and somehow falls asleep when he gets high, but again, for another time, we are not showing him falling asleep. He's just apparently asleep. And Freddy gets in his mind.
Well, he gets in his mind first. He shares a bong with him.
That's exactly it. Freddy appears while this guy is asleep in a really bad CGI. I want to say some little like a little cockroachy, millipede-y.
Weird, like Alice in Wonderland thing.
A worm with legs, sort of creature.
Yeah, it's like there's an Alice in Wonderland reference where she meets this like hash pipe smoking caterpillar thing, and I'm like, that's basically what they've done here.
Yeah, it's like a caterpillar with Freddy's face on the front of it.
Yeah, so he smokes this, I don't know, hash pipe thing, and then Freddy like crams himself down his throat or something.
Yes, he dives right down the stoner's throat, which then makes the stoner be possessed by Freddy himself.
So the stoner then goes and he finds all the hypnocil and he starts pouring it down the sink, and they're like, "Oh, don't do that!" And he's like, "No, pours it down." At which point in time, Jason then appears. Clearly, he's for some reason he's tracking this particular group of teenagers. This is the only teenagers left.
That bothered me when Jason just appears. He appears. He just appears at this mental asylum. We also do not know how far away this mental asylum is.
No,
I mean
he's outside of town.
Clearly a very good traveller, Jason, but he just appears at this. He's a very good tracker, as we established in the beginning of Friday the 13th Part 2. He can track people. Apparently, he can track people very well.
He's literally at the start of the film. Freddie is Pamela Voorhees says, "Just go kill kill all the children in Springwood." So Jason would do that. So there's no real reason other than we need him here now. Because this is getting to the end game of the film here. We need Jason here for what's about to happen. So he will just turn up. Yeah. And of course, he does just turn up. And then all the group are like, "Oh, crap, it's Jason, run away." And the stoner dude is like, "Oh, I've got this." Because at this point in time, Freddie has realized he has to get rid of Jason. Because if he can't get rid of Jason, there'll be no one left. And he's not going to come back.
He realizes his plan isn't really working.
Yeah.
Because it was a stupid plan to begin with.
It really was. Terrible plan to begin with. I'll mention who they were going to put in the sequel in a minute, or after we get through this last bit. And so Stoner Dude, he runs up he waits till Jason gets near him, and then he pumps him full of like a mass amount of hypnocil, or like the last remaining bit of hypnocil.
Yeah, it's about two big syringes worth, and we're talking comical size syringes in the neck.
These are Acme levels of Looney Tunes.
They were,
and he gets sliced in half. Jason passes out.
The stoner guy gets sliced in half.
Yeah, the stoner guy gets sliced in half. Freddy's like, okay. And then the kids are like, "Oh, cool. It's like, this is Jason. He's knocked out." And they're like, "I know." "Oh, well, no, we've missed a bit." So when Laurie falls asleep in the meeting, she imagines that her friends are trying to kill her. And when it's revealed it's Freddy, she rips off part of his ear or something. And she brings it into the real world. And then she's like, "Oh, we can kill Freddy in the real world." So when they find Jason, they're like, "Oh, cool. If we bring Freddy into the real world, Jason can kill him." And they're like, "Cool. Let's go to Camp Crystal Lake." Which is, again, as we've said earlier, is 7 hours away.
It is a long trip away, yeah.
Long trip away. And these guys have found extra levels of hypnocil from somewhere. Because they're on this van, they're traveling down, they're like, "Oh, yeah. If we can get him out, if we can keep him tranquilized enough." They've also tied him up.
Well, hang on, hang on. So they've drugged Jason, and they've managed to get. Well, there's other things that happen in the mental asylum. So when Jason does arrive, he doesn't just attack the stoner guy. He does a full assault. So he kills Greg, because he accidentally he's going for an attack. Slashes one of the computers, which ends up electrifying him because it goes through the machete to him. While he's being electrocuted, he grabs Greg from the scary movie, Officer Stubbs, and kills him. Yep. That's the only one. Lindemann is shooting at him, but doesn't.
Yeah, doesn't die.
He grabs Stubbs' gun. Basically, he doesn't die. He's just trying to defend himself. But also, how did they get him in this truck? I mean, they must be amazing tranquilizers, but how did they get him in this truck? Because of the fact the security is pathetic at this mental asylum.
Yeah, it's rubbish. And let's be honest, this is a 6'7" monster of a man.
Yeah,
and there's it's basically Laurie, Will, and Lindemann. So Lindemann is not a big guy. He's basically the geek in this.
Yeah.
So he's not really built. Laurie is probably average build. And Will, again, is not a jacked bloke. So to lift this monster of a bloke would take some very superhuman effort. Well, not superhuman, but it would be very hard for them to lift him.
It would be hard, but it would also be time-consuming.
It would be. Well, these guys, they don't care about time, because this is... Bear in mind that the cornfield to the end of the film happens in one night.
Yeah.
And
it does.
For them to get to Camp Crystal Lake 7 hours away, they're, it's not possible.
Well, obviously, yeah.
This is when we get to see the swamp in Jason's mind, which we said earlier is really cool.
It is good. It is good. Design. Yeah.
And it's at this point in time that Freddie meets Jason in the dream world for the first time, and he starts to kind of attack him. But then he kind of realizes it's like, well, Jason's not actually scared of me, because no matter what he does to him, he's just like, okay, and he just keeps on coming.
Was it at this point where we learn about? It's at this point we learn about Jason's fear of water.
Yes,
and why he has this fear of water.
Yeah. So this is probably the only Friday the 13th lore that's in this film,
and it's rubbish, in my opinion.
It's terrible. It's basically Freddy goes, "Oh, you're scared of water," and then proceeds to drown Jason in this, dream world.
Describe the way he's they're in this dream world and they're fighting, and Jason's getting his ass handed to him by Freddy. Freddy's using all his mystical powers, telekinesis, throwing shit at Jason, metal plates, the whole shebang.
Everything.
This whole dream world is kind of like a factory, industrial setting. And they get to a point where I believe Jason slashes a pipe and water is like a waterfall gushing down. And it's acting as a barrier between Freddy and Jason. But Freddy notices Jason is sort of holding back from the water. He won't move through it. And I hated that. It shows weakness. I don't want to see weakness like that.
It's also, again, not canon.
No,
because in the last Friday the 13th films, yes, Jason has a fear of drowning. That's the thing. He doesn't have a fear of water. And in past Friday the 13th films, he's attacked people from under the water. He's not, he's not afraid to go into the water. He's just afraid to drown.
Yes. So, and also, this water that's coming down in front of him is technically like a rain. It's like rain. So he's been in the rain.
That's what I thought. I was like, if he's that scared of water falling, it's like when he stepped into the thunderstorm, he would have been like, oh no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Also, I mean, if you were that scared of water, you wouldn't live near a lake. Let's be honest.
Oh well, he's not really all there with it. To be fair, poor Jason.
Yeah, not really. No, not really.
Is at this point is when, because it's a dream world, anything can happen. Jason suddenly becomes young Jason, cowering on the floor.
Yeah.
And that is where Freddy gets into his mind, within his mind. And then that's where we go back to Camp Crystal Lake and we see Jason.
Jason drowning. He's pushed in by the kids. And then, Freddy likes to torment him about this.
At the same time this is happening, we're in the van. Laurie decides to go under and get somehow in the same dream world.
Jason. Which is not actually possible.
How's that? How does she just go asleep and suddenly get into the dream world? It's not really established. It's also a big note I've got here. You have Jason in a van. Why are you not just killing him? Why are you not just killing him there and then? Why do we have to use him as a pawn to do something we're not even sure is going to work? Why are you not just killing him there and then? You're not going to be classed as murderers. You have proof of this monster. Just kill him.
Plus, I think if you would turn around and be like, oh, we killed Jason Voorhees, by the way, people are like, oh, thank goodness for that.
Exactly.
He's like, he's gone.
Yeah.
But so, they notice that Jason is drowning. So Laurie's like, I'll go in and help him, which, isn't possible because, like we said, can't go into the same dream. You would probably fall asleep and then be like, oh, I'm on a cloud. Okay, cool. And then she arrives at Camp Crystal Lake Dreamworld and she finds young Jason in the water. So she reaches in to try and help him. At which point, I think Freddy does that weird dream demon flight thing where he pulls Jason down and then he leaps out of the water.
Yes.
I must admit, it's a cool, demon Freddy shot. I was like, oh, I really like that.
Yep.
And then she's like, okay, yeah, come at me. Blah. And so Freddy...
Come fight me, bro.
Come fight me, bro. And then, so they're having this weird tussle. All in the while, she's screaming, wake me up, blah, blah. And in the van, they're just like, yeah, we should wake her up, shouldn't we? Yeah, let's wake her up. And they're trying all they can to wake her up. And I think... they've also realised that they don't have any Hypnosil left. because Lindeman's like, we've got none left. This is it. So after this dose, he's going to wake up.
There's also the point in the van, in the middle of all that, where Jason is drowning, but for their logic, they need him alive, which is again why I was baffled as to just kill him, just get rid of one of your enemies at least.
Yeah, because they know that if they take Hypnosil, they're not going to dream, so they're like, we can just get rid of Freddy that way.
Jason is drowning, but he's visibly drowning in the van. The dream drowning has merged into reality, and Lindemann persuades Kelly Roland to kind of give him CPR.
Oh God!
And she does
it. I forgot about that.
And she does it, and it's all the gurgling noises of Jason gurgling water, trying to breathe. Yeah, that was a bit silly. That
was terrible. So Laurie's having this fight with Freddie, and they wake her up. And as they wake her up, do they wake her up here? No, they don't wake her up because the van crashes.
Yes.
Because Jason wakes up, and then they're like, "Oh my God, Jason's awake!" And for some reason, Will loses control of the van. And it crashes over, and it launches Jason out of the van. He goes flying for miles.
He really does.
He flies.
Oh my God.
And then after this car wreck, they're like, "Oh, we're on Camp Crystal Lake. Oh, okay, let's go."
Convenient crash, that was.
Yeah.
It was very convenient.
It was, yeah. They crashed right in Camp Crystal Lake. And then, of course, at that point in time, I was like, cool, you're now stuck in Camp Crystal Lake with Jason Voorhees.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is, well, to be fair, this is the note I have for later. It's like, well, I'll come back to it in a minute, actually. And they pick up Laurie's body, and they walk to this, like, boathouse type thing, I guess. All while Laurie is still asleep, and in the dream world is screaming at him, to be woken up. And I can't remember how it happens, but somehow... Oh, no, Jason is tracking him at this point in time. Mm-hmm. And Lindemann and I think it's Kelly Rowland's character, they try and deter Jason long enough to wake Laurie up so she can bring out Freddie. So they set fire to this boathouse thing, at which point in time, Laurie's arm catches fire. It burns her long enough, and so she wakes up with Freddie.
Yeah.
And this is when we get... Oh, yeah. Oh, you're agreeing with me? And
no, go.
Yeah.
And this
is when we get to the final bit of this film, which is finally Freddy versus Jason, because Freddy's turned up and he's like, I'm in the real world, and then he turns around and he's like, oh shit, Jason, and fire, and they're like, oh, Freddy's weakness is fire. Oh, okay. And this is the point where so many people just get killed off, which I think is quite fun. But except for Lindemann. Lindemann suffered a bit.
It feels like they were told to wrap shit up now. It feels like they were told to. It's time. We're running out of time. We're running out of film. We're running out of budget. We gotta. Let's just wrap this up.
Get it done with. And Freddie and Jason finally have their big old blowout fight, which is so over the top.
It's ridiculous. Funny. It's ridiculous.
Oh, it is. My.
At this point, Jason kills Kelly Rowland.
Does he kill? Oh, he does, yeah.
Yeah.
He kills Lindemann first because he launches him into a tree.
Yes.
And, shatters every bone in his body. And he falls down, and Kelly's like, oh no, he stabs him as well, I think. And Kelly's like, oh, I'll be right back. He's like, yeah, go. It's all right. And then he's like, just, dies there and then.
Yep.
And then I can't remember how Kelly dies. I probably just blocked it out because I wasn't paying attention at this point in time. Mainly because my note here is Pinball Jason, which was so bad.
I will definitely be honest. I do not remember the rest, the end of the film as much as I do the rest, and that's saying something.
I will give you a quick rundown.
Do it.
Of it, because at this point in time, it's this fight scene is so bad.
Yeah.
Basically, they go to a construction site on Camp Crystal Lake, which there would not be a construction site because no one goes to Camp Crystal Lake because it's abandoned and Jason lives there. And basically, Freddy pinballs Jason. Oh no, Pinball Jason was in the dream world. That was it. He pinballed Jason in the dream world. He was knocking around the pipes That was that bit. Basically, they have this fight in this construction area, which, you know, is only there for convenience sake. And Freddy pins Jason to the ground with loads of spikes. So he's stuck, he's bleeding, he's pretty injured. And then he goes to, like, launch a minecart at him. But then it doesn't work. And for some reason, they set off it knocks a wrecking ball off that then wallops into Freddy, knocking him on the floor. At the same time, this thing's still bouncing around, and then I think it basically hits the two of them, and it launches. These characters just fly across the air. The physics do not apply to these characters.
Well, as we established from the fact that Jason got launched from the van that crashed and was basically a mannequin dummy. There was no mass to him. He just went.
Oh, yeah. Similar to this bad CGI where these two get launched across this construction site to the docks easily. I don't know. Most of my notes don't make sense here, probably because I was just trying to ignoring this bit. Basically, one of my notes is weird Freddy comment roasting about dick sizes. And I'm like, I don't remember where this came in, but okay, cool. Freddy was clearly had an issue with the size of his manhood, maybe.
Well, as much as... Go on.
Oh, Kelly dies. I think it was Super Duper Tree Slam. I think that's how she dies. Yes, she's punched and then she goes flying through the air and she cracks into the tree. That was it.
As much as I do not really remember this last final part, I do remember how they both die, Jason and Freddy. It's in a simple way. Jason kills Freddy, but Laurie gets the final kill on Freddy. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Laurie kills Freddy.
No, Laurie kills Freddy. Freddy pretty much ends Jason. That was what I meant.
Yeah, Freddy kills Jason.
Jason gives the assist. He gives the assist to Laurie to get the final kill.
Yeah, she sets fire to that giant propane tank.
Yeah.
And stands there next to Will. And I was watching, and if you've just set fire to a giant propane tank,
that's going up.
You'd have seconds at best to get out of there.
Why is that there?
I don't. Well, that's the thing. There's a whole construction area on Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
Which there shouldn't be. And again, it's just plot ease. It's like, we need some big fight. It's like, oh, what if we have them hit by a wrecking ball? Yeah, okay, put a giant construction site in there. It's like, oh, should we blow Freddy up with fire? Yeah, stick a propane tank there. I don't know. Just do something. It's like, again, we're running out of time and money. No one wants to do this film anymore. Just get it done. Let's get going.
Yeah, we've gone through this complete nonsensical plot to eventually... Yeah. This nonsensical plot to eventually get to what the film's titled at. Yeah. And it feels very much a throwaway scene. It feels very much like a wrap-up scene for no... Exactly. For the sake of it.
So they kill these two, and... Well, Jason is never seen to die. He falls into the lake, I think, and he starts to drop. And I was like, okay, Freddy is at this point in time, he's decapitated. He's missing his arms, so he's pretty much out of the game. And then these two Will and Laurie kind of just stand there having a chat. And I was like, "You're still in Crystal Lake, by the way." I would get out of Crystal Lake because you
try and leave as quick as possible.
You would leave as quickly as possible, exactly. And basically, they leave, and it's like, everyone's dead, yay! And then Jason emerges from the lake. You're like, Jason's alive. And
holding his hand, Freddy's head.
You have Freddy's head that winks at the camera as the film ends, which you're just watching it going, no. So, because it's well established that if Freddy dies in the real life, he dies. But clearly this film, they were like, no, we're going to have him still alive.
There's no resolve after this film.
No, there really isn't.
There's no resolve whatsoever.
No one wins in this film. Well,
this film is pointless. This is pointless, this film.
And once you get to the end of this film, you can see why there haven't been any other films made in these franchises. We're not counting the reboots, because the reboots didn't do well either way. This was Robert Englund's last appearance as Freddy Krueger, and I was like, it is not a good one. It's got to be honest.
I mean, in the franchise itself, the latter ones weren't great. Same with the Friday the 13th.
Well,
but they're
that's just
more watchable. Yeah, sequelitis. They're more watchable than this. That's for sure. I would say.
I did like. I mean, the credits were good only because they had an Il Nino song again.
Yes.
So that was nice to watch.
Yes, I would always take that.
But, yeah. I mean, they were really pinning hopes on this film doing well because the idea was to start building a united horror franchise,
like a
where they were like, okay, we're gonna have slasherverse. We're gonna have Freddy versus Jason, like Freddy versus Jason 2, Freddy versus Jason, and they were going to have Ash Williams. Yeah. But because this film just tanked so hard, the whole lot were like, scrap that. Do not make that film whatsoever. And I'm so glad that they made it into a comic book, but I'm so glad they didn't make it a film because it would have just been awful.
Well, there's also a comic book series I've been trying to find for ages, which is Leatherface versus Jason.
Yeah, I did. That one's very hard to come by.
Yeah.
One of those rare, gold mine things.
Yeah, not seeing it anywhere, but I am sure there's probably multiple different comic iterations of certain slashers versus certain slashers. There's a comic for everything.
Oh yeah, easily.
This film is a mess.
It really is.
It's a mess.
I'm not watching it again. I've only seen it twice, and I'm never watching it again.
I'm honestly glad we have gotten it out of the way. Apologies, folks. It has seemed like quite a quick run-through review, whereas our other reviews have gone over 2 hours, maybe. But this film is a mess.
It's a mess, and honestly, the film's pace, they just rush from thing to thing.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Yeah. It was someone, I think someone had an idea for a nightmare film, and if they just stuck to making it a nightmare film, they could have polished it up, made it a bit creepier, a bit darker, had it as maybe, instead of Jason, you had maybe, like I said, a bit of a psychotic kid. It would have been an okay nightmare film, but as a crossover film, it was so nightmare influenced that Jason was like, well, I'm barely in it. I'm only in it when I need to be in it.
How's about you just don't make Will and Mark residents of the mental asylum, and instead of Jason, you have Freddie going after an ex-serial killer that was in the mental asylum, and he breaks free.
Yeah,
and that's it. That's all you need to do. And then, there you go. It's a new Freddie film, but it's not quite Freddie doing it. It's Freddie using someone to do his bidding. But that's all you need to do.
You could even do it in a way where maybe the slasher's like, "Oh, it's Freddie making me do this," and people are like, "Who the hell's Freddie?" It's like,
yeah.
Well,
they don't believe. They don't believe him.
They don't exactly. They don't believe him, and it builds on that sort of. Is it him? But it's not though. It's like that would be an interesting thing.
Yeah, they tried too hard to get both the iconic killers in, and it just didn't work. It did not work.
No, it really didn't.
So, unfortunately, folks, we cannot recommend this film. But if you want a fun, no. Why am I saying fun? It's not fun.
If you are even remotely interested in watching this film, do so without our blessing, because it's not worth your time.
I think it's only maybe like 85 minutes, maybe 85 minutes.
Very short film.
Which is what fucks with the pacing quite a lot. I mean, you can have a short horror film if it's just done right. I mean, we discussed Friday the 13th 1 and 2 were quite short, but they had good pacing.
They were only about an hour and 15 minutes, but they got it right with how they did it. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm afraid this film, folk, if you've never seen it, is not a good recommendation.
No, we did it again. Like we said, we were going to do slasher versus slasher, but
the film kind of did it for us.
Yeah, the film did it for us. It's just. Why is my camera turning off? I don't know.
The film kind of did it for us in the way of getting the worst versions of each of these slashers out the way, I think.
Yeah.
I think in the future, when we come back to this, if we ever do Jason versus Freddy, we'll have done Friday the 13th Part 1, 2, and Nightmare on Elm Street 1, and we'll be able to go back and analyse both of them and discuss each one. This kind of was a two birds with one stone. We got the film that was titled Freddy versus Jason out the way, and discussing their worst entries in one film. Really so it do you know what? It worked out for the best with an awful film.
We will do will do a Freddy versus Jason / versus Slasher, but we'll do it with what we feel is the best versions of those characters, rather than this one, which is just the worst. I mean, we originally were going to base it off the two characters in this film because it's like, right, they're in the film, whatever they have is that. Unfortunately, Jason is barely in it. So actually, like, you can't. It's not fair. It would be very much, well, Freddy wins it because Jason only appears, and it
would have been a short episode.
He has a really
short
good
episode.
Yeah, he has a really bad immunity to horse tranquilizer. Clearly.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah. Yep. So we've had our horrible meal here, but we're gonna have we're gonna have our lovely dessert on the next episode, which is the original Nightmare on Elm Street. I have to preface that with the original because there is obviously a remake, and I can't for the life of me ever think we'll do the remake.
No,
not anytime soon. That's for sure.
It might be we do an episode on.
We may have to.
We do a brief episode on remakes.
Yes,
where we could do is do like remake versus remake, and we have a look at the two.
Yeah.
However, most of the time it's going to be the original because you can't be the original.
No, but we can look at shitty remakes. That is for sure, and we could get a lot of content out of that. So,
easily. Episode
15 next time will be A Nightmare on Elm Street. I think that was as far as our plans got. We'll work something out for the next few episodes after that. We've got a few
we're going to do a bit of planning so we can maybe. We've got other plans of bringing other types of horror stuff, but like we said, we need to really plan those out. I know we wanted to do horror games, but again, some not like watching a film, it's maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours. Playing a game, you have to play the game, and it's like I have to find time to play the game. So we'll have that's probably why we haven't done many TV series, because it's like an hour and a half film versus 13 hours. Oh, okay, that's a lot of hours.
We'll get to games down the line, but for now, films are working out as a treat. Nightmare on Elm Street next time. So, until then, until episode 15. Episode 15, we've done quite well to get to 15 episodes. I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
Until then, we have socials. You can find...
Yes, we do.
But before the socials, actually, let's get... this is actually a podcast. Listeners, you're listening to the podcast. You should probably tell you where you can find it. You can find the Dreadcast on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, Podbean, Amazon/Audible, and on YouTube. YouTube, simply just search the Dreadcast. You'll find the videos wherever they're uploaded on whatever channel. And our personal social medias. The Instagram of the Dreadcast is _Dreadcast. My personal social medias are now rebranded to Tomzilla because it's a bit simpler.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Tomzilla, you'll find it there. Yourself, sir.
You can find me on Twitter. I am on Twitter as Tainted Souls. You look for the little ghost and you will find me there. I'm on Instagram as Tainted Souls as well. Again, check out the ghost. And I am on TikTok, but the TikTok, if you wanted to find it, is now searching for the Dreadcast. We do have a Dreadcast TikTok. Lovely. So you can find it there. I'm working out what to do with it. You would include promos, obviously, for episodes, and I'm going to try and do some like clips from horror movies, maybe like first appearances and things like that. To kind of promote our podcast a bit more.
There we go. We now have an Instagram and a TikTok officially for the Dreadcast.
We do have a Gmail as well.
We do have a Oh my god, I forgot to promote that. Promote it. Go for it. Promote. We have a
Gmail at thedreadcastpodcast@gmail.com. You can email us any questions you want to ask us. You can email us ideas if you want us to cover things. Maybe you have some random indie horror film that we've never heard of, like Pin, and we will get around to it.
In fact, just send us anything. Any question in life.
Anything.
Tell us about your life. And if you've made it this far in the podcast episode, thank you.
Yes, thank you for watching. 14 episodes.
14 episodes in. Yeah.
We're a teenager now on podcast.
We are. We're going to be 15 soon. But until number 15, say the thing.
Stay creepy.
There it is.